Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Our Amplified Life. And today is Conversations with Rebecca and Amy, where we really like to get just kind of raw and real and in the moment with you. And we've done several of these on lots of different topics, varying from, food and fitness to DIY and all things in between. And you guys are loving it. So we decided we just keep bringing them to you. If you have any topics that come to mind that you would love for us to cover, let us know, because we're always looking for things that are going to serve you well. So today, we were kind of trying to decide what to visit about, and something that popped into my mind was saying yes. And for so many years, I had to train myself to say no, because I am a people pleaser at heart. And I also love to do lots of different things. And so I would get myself so tied down with different projects and activities. I felt like a hamster on a hamster wheel that could not get off. So saying that word no was huge. But then I also have found myself, a lot of times I say no to maybe some things that I should say yes to. So the reason that this is so top of mind for me is I was at a ranch horse show last weekend that I was judging, and leading up to that, I was just kind of, while I wanted to be there, there was also so many other things that needed to be happening. I was feeling kind of some guilt about being there. And I don't know if you guys have ever felt that, but once I was there, I was so thankful to have said yes, because it just really revived my soul. And I'll get a little bit deeper into that later. But Amy, why don't you share some of the things that maybe you've said yes to that felt like a bit of a push or a struggle, but then looking back, you're so glad that you did say yes to that activity?
Oh gosh. I can go back to my very first cabbie show I hosted. I mean, I know this sounds very cheeky and cliche because we're cabbie stylists, but I live on a mountain surrounded by sagebrush. I'm not a good entertainer. It's completely outside of my box to have people come and expect me to entertain them. And I genuinely just really liked the lady that was doing cabbie. I didn't know what I was doing, and I drug my feet, and I was like the worst hostess ever. And saying yes to that event changed the trajectory of my life. So I think one thing to take away from this is right now, especially if you're into self-help books, if you're into all of this self-care talk, everybody's talking about saying no. And my biggest takeaway from the last 2 years is that it's extremely easy to say no. It's extremely easy to become very isolated, and it tends to put us back into what is comfortable. And to me, that is not self-help at all. It doesn't help us grow and challenge ourselves. And it doesn't introduce us to really cool people. And so everything that I have said yes to, that I drug my feet for, I know I came away from it feeling pretty darn good, because I either met somebody that I really loved, or I was able to sit back and just breathe. And so I can't really name one specific event other than I know I was the worst hostess ever for Lori because I would not book. I was like, oh, but every time I did it, and I hosted for 3 seasons before I became a stylist, I loved it. And there were people that came and walked out of my house because they didn't think they could ever afford the clothes. So it wasn't like it was a huge success all the time, but it was actually, I got to kind of sit back and see how it made others feel. And I liked doing that for them. So I think it's that aspect of the outside looking in. One other example would just be, sometimes I've invited people to come out hiking or to do a yoga retreat or something, and that specifically, by them saying yes and paying the money to come out to that, you could see the gratification in them. So I really think that saying no is not empowering. I think it's what we choose to say yes to, that is what's important.
I think no can be empowering, but we often get to using it as a shield.
There you go.
It seems like, I mean, I needed to learn how to say no because it was not healthy what I was doing. But yet then I needed to figure out, okay, the balance and kind of the ebb and flow of how things need to work and what I need to continue to feel very healthy and fulfilled. I needed to learn how to say yes to the right things, not to everything, which is what I was doing before. Yeah, I know. So many of you know that I was in a car accident 6 years ago, and I have not been able to ride since since the accident. And I can get myself worked up to riding for 5 or 10 minutes, but then when I try to start using my legs, then it's burning, shooting pains, and I have to get off. And so
to clarify, when you're talking riding, you're speaking of riding a horse, just in case that connection wasn't there.
Very good clarification. If you don't know me and know that I'm a horse gal, then thank you, friend, for having my back. But so for me, we still have been raising horses. We've got some incredible horses just standing around that I cannot ride and show. And so I've kind of pulled myself back and almost lost hope in a lot of aspects. But being up there and judging, and I have judged a few shows a year as I could, but it just made me realize that really is where my passion lies in a lot of things. And I need to figure out, if I cannot ride to the capacity that I was and do cow horse and cutting and all the things, then what is something that I can do? And I think that's a really good thing for us to all think about, and not think about it has to be either or, but it could be both and. And so maybe you can't do it to the capacity that you had before, or even that you would desire, but at what level can you do something? And just kind of start where you can and move on from there.
I love that reframe, Rebecca. And I do think the yes or no answer is that all or nothing, that everything that you're talking about. And so thinking of what you can do really encompasses a little bit of everything. And when I see women that I feel accomplish everything, one thing that I have taken from them is that the busier they are, the more they accomplish, but they do it in a smart way. They schedule it out. And I used to say, oh yeah, let's go to lunch. And then I'd never go to lunch with a girlfriend. And then I'd see her again and be like, why haven't we gone to lunch? And I decided that I would have to start penciling in my friends. Now, that wasn't because I was trying to make time for them. It was because they are a priority for me. And so there is a reframe and a shift with any language that we use, whether that's yes, I can do that for you today, or no, that's not going to work for me right now. I do think we have to be very intentional in the language that we use and how it's going to make us feel. So one thing I'm learning to do is not to make a decision on a whim. I really have to kind of sit with it for a minute, because a lot of times my first response is no. It's really easy for me to become isolated. It's really easy for me. I have really strong boundaries, which is probably what you had to learn by learning to say no. For me, it was really easy for me just to say no. And part of that was I always felt like I couldn't do a few things based on how my husband might react or feel, or, what is it about when you have young kids? It's all about them. And so no became so easy for me. And that calendaring, or looking at it that I'm not trying to fit someone in, it's actually that I'm making them a priority. Oh my gosh, it was such a game changer for me. And so, that if anybody doesn't know, Rebecca, it's not just like she wanted to go to a horse show and it was next door. It was a 5-hour drive both directions. And so just the thought of that could be extremely exhausting and give you the reason not to, especially with your back history.
Yeah. I love that you just brought up the calendaring and the scheduling of things that are a priority for you, because that has been huge in my own life. And I would add to that, and I feel like lunch with a friend is a form of self-care, but other forms of self-care, be it massage or scheduling time to get out and walk or spend time with, your dogs, people that you love, whatever it is, schedule that in, because as Amy was saying, if you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. And it's not that you don't, have that as a priority. It's just that other things fill in the time. How many times do we have a day off and then all of a sudden we're like racing from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and all of the things that you really wanted to accomplish didn't happen? Well, it's because we didn't have a plan. And if we don't have a set plan in place, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I'm not one that wants to schedule down my every 15 minutes. That it creates anxiety for me, but I do have to save space for that. And if I know that I'm going to lunch with someone, I actually book extra time out because I don't want to be in a panic trying to get to the next thing. I had a thought that was coming to me and it just disappeared. Oh, this is what it was. Another thing I try and do now, if it's not a doctor's appointment or, something that is necessary, if it's something that I have done in the past and it circles back to me and it's like, do you want to do this again? Part of the reason I've learned to kind of sit on that is I think it's really important to reflect on how you felt then. I think if there's some time in between, it's really easy to say, oh, that's not important to me, or I can do that later. But if I sit in it and I reflect back on how I felt in that moment, then it helps me kind of make the decision of, is this a yes or is that a no? If I know I walked away from that feeling very vibrant and refreshed and, oh my gosh, I laughed the whole time, it might take a little work to get there, but I know I'm going to come away feeling revived and refreshed and laugh again. So that reflection is sort of something that I'm trying to use in my decision making. That's also a great reflection for a calendar, because I can go back and go, okay, I did this then. It seemed like it felt pretty good. I liked, that time of the day I did it, or whatever your thing is. I think reflection is really important, but also, where was I at emotionally at that time? Like, was it something I really needed, or was it something I thought I needed and I forced myself to do it and I came out better? Or, I think reflection is just a huge, huge thing. How does that make you feel? Because I almost think that's more important than the actual yes or no. It's getting to that decision, I think, that is sometimes overlooked.
Yeah, another fantastic tip. I'll leave you with a tip here. Something for someone that is struggling with always saying yes to people's requests. Something that was very helpful for me was, if someone would ask if I could help with something, or whatever the case was, I would in the moment say, I need to check my schedule and get back to you. And so that gave me the opportunity to really take a look at my calendar and see, is this something that I'm going to be able to give my all to, and then get back to them with the answer, instead of just always saying yes in the moment and then figuring out how to squeeze everything in. Just don't give a commitment at the time, and then truly check your schedule with clear eyes and see if it is something that you can do without being stressed out, and then get back to them with a yes or a no on that. That was a liberating thing for me as well.
And on that, one more quick little thing, if it's something that's going to affect your finances, and if you really love the person and you want to support them, but it doesn't work financially, that might be a good time to say, you know what, I really love you. Could we just spend a day together? Or can I see you in this capacity? Then they don't feel shut down. But also know that your friendship and your relationship does matter. I mean, there's been times that Rebecca and I are in the industry where we're asking people to support us financially, but we also feel like we want to support everybody that supports us as well. And sometimes that's just a hard thing to do. And that is one of those things where I don't want to say no, but I want to say that maybe not right now, but how's this? I want to come up with another way of maybe supporting that person. And I would respect that if it came back to me as well. I think sometimes on the receiving end, when we're asking people to support and to say yes, I think it feels like, oh my gosh, they're going to hate me. They feel like every time I approach them, they think it's only about this one thing. And I think the one thing that we forget is that they are asking you because they love you. They adore you. They want to work with you. They just want some time to be with you. And I mean, I've lost friendships because they thought it was only about Cabby, and it wasn't for me. It was about spending that time with them while I cleaned up the clothes and I got to see them. I didn't honestly care if we had sales that night. So I think you need to remember that if you are being asked to say yes, it's because that person coming to you genuinely feels like there is some kind of value that you bring to them. Is it because you're a good friend? Is it because you are so talented in that area that they think that you could be the one that helps them make that event successful? Is it, I think you need to look at that as they think you are of value. People don't ask people to do things that they don't love and adore. And so I just want you to hold on to that point. That's as simple as it is. People ask because they love you. And I think if you can kind of take that, telling them yes or no in that instance becomes about that person and that relationship and how you would want that response given to you. There is pressure felt on both ends. I promise you that. And there's also fear on both ends. I think that's a very real and valid emotion that comes up. Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it, I don't want to hurt their feelings? But I think if we can hold that thought of, I love that person, I respect that person, I admire what they're trying to do, then I think the answer really can resonate with you and you can handle it in a much better instance. So as Rebecca said, take that moment to check your calendar, give them a response out of respect, and then the respect is there no matter what you decide.
Yeah. Wow. That was full of little nuggets of wisdom right there, Amy. I appreciate that very much. I love the reminder that we are our own worst critics. And so many times when people are coming to us with something, it's because they do see something in us that we may or may not see in ourselves. So be open to that.
Yeah. I don't know. This is a topic that is near and dear to our hearts. We've seen it in action. We've felt it in action. We've read about it in books. And, I also think if we never say yes, we never take in anything new. We will say no to every adventure. Just one quick story. I have a friend who I met through a hiking adventure. And She just said yes to a very expensive trip to Hawaii to go on a yoga retreat. And she went solo. She went alone. And I don't know too many people that would do that, not knowing anybody. And she was just like, nope, this is what I need. I want to learn from others. And I haven't had the chance to speak to her about it, but I've been able to see pictures that she's posted. And I really admire that in someone. I mean, I can't even imagine what that might have stirred up for her. Maybe it was peace. I don't know, but I really think it's pretty cool when women say yes and they go for it. They may not know the outcome, but to be brave in themselves in that way is such a cool thing.
Yeah. So I think that our question for you today is, what can you say yes to? It may be a risk, it may feel scary, but there's something out there that you probably need to say yes to. What is that?
I love it. Why don't you end us, Rebecca? Because I just think you have such a calming voice, and I can't think of anyone better to take us out.
All right. Well, again, we appreciate you being here with us each and every week. We hope that us pulling back the curtain here a little bit more and letting you into the inner working of our lives, it just gives you a little bit more of a perspective on who we are as women, and also helps maybe validate whatever situation you're in, helps you feel seen and understood and not alone. That is, I think, our heart's desire for these times, is just for you to know that you are loved, you are worthy, and we so appreciate you. So have a blessed week, and we can't wait to see you next week.